Hi, this is Les and Amy from the RevGenetics Podcast. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube and now on Spotify, where we do a deep dive on supplements and longevity studies.
Welcome aboard. We've got a really fascinating deep dive today. It's right at that sweet spot between, food science and healthy aging.
It really is. So what's our mission today?
Our mission is to explore this new, surprisingly simple and totally natural way to produce NMN. That's beta-nicotinamide mononucleotide. We're looking at how to basically turn the good bacteria you find in yogurt into tiny factories for this amazing molecule.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Why are we even focusing a whole deep dive on how this one molecule is made? I mean, NMN is huge in the longevity space.
It is.
We've seen studies both in humans and mice that show some really promising effects, things like better energy metabolism, improved muscle function, and even better sleep quality. So the research is pointing to this molecule being pretty key for keeping our bodies running well as we get older.
And that's exactly it. That's why finding a safe, efficient, and, scalable way to produce it is so critical. If we want to get NMN into everyday functional foods, not just supplements, the production has to be affordable and, totally safe for consumption.
Which brings us right to the study we're digging into. The paper is called Nicotinamide Mononucleotide Production by Non-Recombinant Limosilactobacillus reuteri and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide synthesizing lactic acid bacteria.
Yeah, it's a mouthful of a title,
Right.
but the idea behind it is honestly revolutionary. They're using natural, friendly microbes to do the work. But before we get into the bacteria, let's do a quick reset on why NMN even matters.
Right. And for that, we have to talk about its target, the molecule doing all the heavy lifting inside our cells, which is NAD plus TRIST.
Exactly. So NAD plus RA, or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, think of your body as this huge, complex skyscraper. NAD plus is both the electrical grid powering everything and the maintenance crew that fixes all the wear and tear.
Okay, I like that analogy, power and repairs.
It's essential for literally thousands of reactions, from making energy to repairing your DNA.
And the problem with aging is what?
The problem is that the power grid starts to flicker, and the maintenance crew, they start calling in sick. Your NAD plus levels drop, sometimes by half or more by the time you're in middle age. And that decline is a huge factor in why we feel older.
So NMN, the molecule we're talking about today, is basically the raw material to get the power back on and get that maintenance crew back to work.
You got it. It's the precursor. You supply the NMN, and your cells have what they need to recharge those NAD plus batteries.
Now, this is where the study gets really interesting because making NMN on a big scale is tricky. Usually it's done with, complex chemical processes?
Yeah, chemical synthesis or sometimes enzymatic methods that can use genetically modified bacteria, and those methods are expensive and have a lot of regulatory hoops to jump through.
So the researchers here wanted to find a different path, a food-grade, non-GMO route.
Exactly. Non-recombinant is the key phrase. It means they're not engineering the organisms. They wanted to use bacteria that are already considered safe for us to eat.
And which bacteria did they land on?
The ones in your yogurt. Lactic acid bacteria, or LAB, they're in all sorts of fermented foods. So they screened 18 different strains of these friendly guys to see if any of them were, natural-born NMN factories.
That feels like looking for a needle in a haystack. Did they actually find one?
They did. That was the first big breakthrough. A very common probiotic strain called Limosilactobacillus reuteri was already making small amounts of NMN all on its own.
Wait, so L. reuteri, that's a huge name in gut health. It was hiding in plain sight.
Completely. The solution wasn't some exotic new microbe. It was right there in products we already use, which is a massive advantage.
Okay, so they found their tiny factory. What's next? Figuring out how to make it work better.
Yep, optimization. They had to find the best food to give the L. reuteri to get the most NMN out of it. They tested a few different precursors.
Like nicotinamide, nicotinic acid,
Yeah.
the usual stuff.
Right. And what they found was kind of backwards, but it was the key. The best raw material for the bacteria to make NMN was actually NAD plus itself.
Hold on, so to make the NMN, which makes NAD plus ED, the bacteria worked best when it was fed. NAD plus ED, that sounds like a loop.
It does, but it told them something critical about what was happening inside the bacteria. It suggested the bacteria were great at the last step, turning NAD plus into NMN, but they were really slow at making the NAD plus in the first place.
Ah, so the supply of NAD plus was the bottleneck, was the speed limit on the whole process.
Exactly, the rate limiting step.
So if your factory can't make its own parts fast enough, you find a partner who can. And that leads to the co-cultivation idea, right? Teamwork.
Precisely. They decided to pair their NMN producer, the L. reuteri, with other lactic acid bacteria that are known to be NAD plus superproducers.
And who are the superstars they brought in?
Two other well-known probiotics, Lactobacillus johnsonii and Lactobacillus gasseri. The idea was simple. Grow them all together, and the L. reuteri could just slurp up all the extra NAD plus its new friends were making.
So did the bacterial dream team work? What were the results?
The results were, frankly, dramatic. When they paired the best L. reuteri strain with L. johnsonii, the NMN production shot up by up to 40 times.
40 times. Wow. That's not just a little tweak. That's a game changer for a natural process.
It really is. By fine-tuning the mix and letting them grow for 96 hours, they hit a peak yield of 16.7 micromoles per liter.
And that number, 16.7, that's a new record.
It is. It's the highest yield ever recorded for NMN production using natural, non-GMO lactic acid bacteria, a world record for friendly microbes.
That's incredible. But did they prove this could work in something you'd actually eat, not just a lab dish?
They did. That was the final test.
Mm-hmm.
They grew the successful pair in a food-grade mix of skimmed milk and yeast extract, basically yogurt starter ingredients.
And it still worked.
It did. They even added another common yogurt bacteria, Streptococcus thermophilus, and the system held up. It shows a clear path to making real NMN-enriched fermented dairy products.
A super yogurt, essentially. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's go back for a second. How does this new record, 16.7 micromoles, compare to the big industrial genetically engineered methods?
And that's the reality check. It's a huge step for natural production, but it's still way, way lower than what the optimized recombinant methods can do. Those can hit yields around 20.3 millimoles per liter.
Wait, stop there. You said micromoles versus millimoles. For everyone listening, how big is that difference?
It's a 1,000-fold difference.
1,000 times. So for every one bucket the natural bacteria make, the engineered ones are making 1,000 buckets.
That's right. It puts the economic challenge in perspective. The natural method has huge safety and consumer appeal, but for sheer volume and cost, the engineered route is still miles ahead.
So what's the new bottleneck? They solved the NAD plus supply issue. What's slowing things down now?
The evidence points to the final conversion step inside the L. reuteri. Even with plenty of NAD plus floating around, the internal machinery that turns it into NMN is just a bit slow.
So the next round of research will be about gently encouraging that internal process to speed up, all without genetic engineering.
That's the challenge. But they've proven the concept. Natural teamwork works. Now it's about making the star player just a little bit faster.
Shout out to RevGenetics for helping us dive into today's topic.
We appreciate their commitment to bringing complex science down to earth. So, to boil it all down, the main takeaway here is that this is a huge scientific success. Scientists have figured out how to get two different natural probiotic bacteria to work together, creating these safe little mini factories for NMN. It opens up a real non-GMO path for getting this longevity molecule into everyday foods, which is really exciting. The road is now paved for a whole new generation of healthy fermented foods.
We hope today's podcast on published science about natural NMN gave you plenty of insights to take away. Thank you for listening to the RevGenetics Podcast. RevGenetics.com for the best longevity supplements on Earth.